Okay, we're now recording. And look, guys, I'm going to remember to share my screen. Okay, so the first part of this is going to be the same for everybody, so you can just follow along with what I'm doing immediately, except that you'll have a different project name. That's all. So I'm going to call mine Lose News, and you guys can use whatever project title you've come up with. And let me go ahead and go. So I've got the workspace folder set up. So remember, I created a workspace folder inside documents. You don't need to do this, by the way. This is my recommendation. But you don't actually have to do this. You can put it into any folder on your system that you want to. You can run Node from any folder within Windows. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click and open in terminal. I think that you might, like, if you if you don't see open in terminal, you might see like more options, show more options, and then it'll be inside of here. But I've got it right here. Now, as a reminder for those of you in Mac OS, if you're on a Macintosh, then go out to where you can see the project folder here, and then right-click on here and go down to the bottom, and there's a open in terminal. And like mine is underneath services, and someone else was showing me theirs on Wednesday, and it didn't have that, but it's going to be in there somewhere. But on Windows, you go ahead and go into the folder, which frankly I think makes more sense, and then open in terminal. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be creating a more modular system where we're using the SFC files, the standalone component files, or single file component. And it's going to look a little bit different from what you first saw on last Monday, or this last Monday. But I did do like an example at the end of Monday where it showed like, yeah, this is all contained within the single app.view, and it's got the script, and it's got the template HTML, and then it's got the scope CSS. It's all kind of neatly contained within the same package, which is pretty cool, I think. We almost got that in native HTTP. I mean, it was almost added as a feature of HTML where you could do HTML imports. And within an HTML file, you could import another HTML file that was a lot like this with its own scope CSS and its own JavaScript that was all contained, and you wouldn't have to worry about collisions or anything like that. And it was going to be beautiful. It's going to be amazing. And then one of the browser vendors said, we're not going to support that. I still don't understand why. But at least we've got it in view. So if you haven't already, then go ahead and make sure that you have opened up a bash shell in whatever folder you're going to be working in. And then this one is npm create, and I'm using Vite at latest. And this should just work. If you've got npm installed, then it will understand what Vite is. And if you hit enter, then it'll take a few moments and think about it. And it should be going quicker than this. Okay, let me control C that. Yes. Let me see if it messed anything up for me. Now, let me try this one more time. It probably was fine, but it was just taking a little longer than I was expecting, so I canceled out of it. So Vite at latest, yes, that is correct. And this time I'll be a little bit more patient, and there we go. Okay, so once you get to here, and it's asking for the project name, go ahead and put your project name in. All right, this is for your actual project now, so you don't want to do just what I'm doing here, but mine is called Lose News. And so once you've got your project name in there, enter. You want to select View for the framework. Unless you want to dive off into the deep end on your own and go start working in React. It's been years since I've worked in React, so I don't know how much I can help you. But View here, and then hit enter. And then make sure that you arrow down and hit JavaScript. Okay, TypeScript is a stricter version of JavaScript. I think I mentioned it before. And it will break things if you do things like normal in JavaScript, like implicit type conversions and things like that. So JavaScript, and hit enter. And you've just created your project. So if we take a look in here in the workspace, it's created the folder, and it's created a bit of the scaffolding here. What it doesn't have so far Well, it's got some of the things in here. It's got the package.json, which is a node thing, and the git ignore and so on. And let's go ahead and just try running the rest of it. So it tells you exactly what to do here. See, I love stuff like this. I love it when it just tells you, yeah, just do this, then do this, then do this. Cool. How can I get it wrong? So change directory to get yourself into your project folder. And now it should show the file or the folder name here, the directory. And then npm install, just like it shows here. And that's going to put other stuff in here. It's going to load all of the dependencies, the extensions, and so on. And if you go in here, then you'll be able to see some of this stuff happening as it starts to build in. So there's all the node modules, and if you go in here, you'll find a lot of stuff getting built for you in here that's available for you to use. You're looking for green, happiness. And then the npm run dev, this is a way of, it's a very simple way to run a node server. I mean, running a node server is a little bit more, a little stricter when you actually do like node and then grab a file for it to select and run an actual node server. For one thing, it's going to be looking for a JavaScript file in particular. In this case, it doesn't have to be one. It can be an HTML file, which is what we've got. We've got the index.html. So let's go ahead and do it. npm run, which is run server, and dev stands for development. So you're running a development server. And if you hit enter on this, give it a moment, and then it'll give you this screen. It'll clear out the shell, and then it'll tell you what to type into your browser. I think you can just click on it, but I'm going to go ahead and type mine in. Instead of typing the full IP address, you should be able to just type in localhost. So let me try that. I'm going to open up, let's see. Open up Chrome, maybe. Looks like I opened it up twice. Okay, so it's 5173 there. So I'm just going to go localhost. There it is, 5173. If it gives you a different number, then type that in instead. And then you can test it just by seeing the stuff show up here, and then also go ahead and try just tapping on the counter here. And if it increments, then view is working. And by the way, I know you guys have worked in Bash before, so you probably already know this. When you want to stop the server, you do Control-C. That works on both Windows and Mac OS. So on Mac OS, usually if you say Control on Windows, then on Mac it's going to be Command. But it's not. For this case, it's it's Control for both of them. So Control-C will just dump me out of the server, and then if I go refresh in the browser, then it's not going to be able to find it. But then I can hit my up arrow on the keyboard, get back to npm run dev, and get the server started again. And then refresh again. Actually, I don't even need to refresh. It just updates automatically, refreshes. So there we go. Anybody running into trouble so far? I'll be happy to do a pause and have you share screen with me if you're running into any issues. I don't want to leave anyone behind here. How's everybody doing?
Yeah, you kind of lost me after the create, npm create.
Okay, so that was just the last. Hang on a second.
Are we recording? Because I'm driving right now, so I probably have to look back at the recording later.
Okay, yeah, I'm recording right now.
Okay, thank you.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to delete my project folder here. And let me just go through this again, because this is no problem. It's not like creating anything that can't be gotten rid of. So if you want to start over again, if you find you've messed things up like I have before, I mean, I've totally destroyed my scaffolding and had to start over, you just go ahead and delete it and start over. So I'm getting rid of that stuff. Windows will probably give me a warning in just a moment. There we go. Yes, remove them. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go cd ... to get myself back up into workspace, and then I'm going to do a dir here and just make sure that, yeah, okay, so it's not listing any folders inside workspace, so that's good. It's empty. I managed to get rid of it. You can also get rid of stuff. You can create files and delete files and folders right here in the command shell, of course. But let me just go through the process again. So if I get to a point where things are getting sticky for you, then yell at me and I'll pause, okay? So the first part is going to be npm node package manager and create. And Vite it's like a framework on a framework, basically. It's a tooling system for Vue that just kind of makes it easy to just create your scaffolding for you. Vue can create its own scaffolding, but from what I've seen, Vite is a little bit smoother. It doesn't tend to throw error messages, which I sometimes get with the other way. So npm create Vite at latest. And latest is just like when we were doing Vue in the browser, or not in the browser, but in just straight in JavaScript, right? Where we were running it from the CDN, and we used Vue at next, which just means grab the latest stable version of Vue. That's what the at latest does here too. Here we go. I can zoom in a bit. Maybe you guys can see that a little bit better. So this is the command to get things started here. And if you hit enter, then you have to sit and wait for it to do its thing for a few minutes. And then it'll ask you a series of questions, like what's the project name? Do you want to use JavaScript or TypeScript? What framework do you want to use? And so on. So go ahead and put your own project name in here. Or if you want to just use this as an opportunity to follow right along with me, that's fine, but just be aware you're going to create your own for your own project at some point. So project name, Lose News, and hit enter. And then here's where it asks you some of the other questions. So you want to arrow down and select Vue instead of React or Vanilla. Arrow down again and make sure you select JavaScript and not TypeScript. TypeScript is the stricter version. And once you've done that, you've got a project in place here. So there's my project folder, and it's already got some stuff in there. It doesn't have all the node stuff in there yet, and that's what the next part is for. And it gives you the 3 instructions for exactly what to do. And really, it's just these 2. Going in, changing directory to get yourself into your project folder here, and then npm install is going to finish fleshing out the rest of the scaffolding with all of the node dependencies that you might need. The npm run dev is just to get the server started. So I'm going to change directory into my project folder, cd lose news. And then if you wanted to, you could do another dir here and see all the stuff that's in there. Then I'm going to do npm install. And let it do its thing. That's going to create all those dependencies in Node. So that was this last command here. And then all of the files and folders that I need are here now. So Node modules contains all of these guys here. There's the Vue, there's Vite, and so on. And then I'm just going to get the server started here, which right now, if I refresh over here, the server is not working. But if I do npm run dev, so run development server, and then go over here, and now I can refresh. And if you haven't done it yet, then just go ahead and type in what you've got up here. You can do the full IP address like this, or you can just exchange the IP for localhost and add the port number here after a colon. And then you should be seeing something like this, and if you click on the counter, then you should be able to increment that up. Okay, how are we doing now?
Good.
Anybody got stuck at any portion of that? Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and see what needs to be different about this. So you guys can either do this or not as you want to. I'm going to be getting a few things into my folders here just to show you how this works and how it's different from the vanilla JavaScript. So remember, we actually did 2 demos on Wednesday, right? The first one we just did was the gallery thing. And then the second one was with the API call to, the remote data points. So I'm going to grab some files that we used on, I guess, Wednesday. Yeah, we had the images in here. And let's see, is this what I want to do? Hang on just a moment here. Let's see, what way do I want to handle this? Yeah, okay, let's go ahead and do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get I'm opening, this is the workspace here. This is the Lose News that I just created, and I'm going to go into the source here and go into assets. So this is where we'll be working. So here's the app.view that we can modify. But to start with, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to open up assets, and notice that it's already got an image file in there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these images that I used on Wednesday. Maybe, there we go. And I'm just going to copy them and paste them in or drag them in or what have you. There we go. And for now, see, this is what I was hesitating about. I was like, do we want to get into like changing the directory structure on here? And I don't think we do. I think that like this has got a main.js in here. I think that like the other thing that we did on Wednesday in order to make use of this was we had something in the JS subfolder, right? We had the gallery.json, and this is what enabled us, like this is what we were actually looping through. We weren't looping through the images, we were looping through this JSON file. So I think I'm going to take this JSON file and I'm just going to slap it right here inside this source subfolder. Just right in here. One of the other options for those images, by the way, would be to put them inside the public folder, which contains, like see, there's another SVG file. But I think it's easier if we just go ahead and do everything inside of here, inside of source. I think it'll work. All right, we'll give it a try. So if you don't have those images ready, then that's okay. You can still code along with me, and then whenever you're ready to, you can try throwing those images in there. But if you've got them handy, go ahead and throw them in now. So I just put them right into assets, all these images, and the gallery.json I just put right here inside the source. So let's go ahead and open up our app.view file. And I'm going to open it up. Looks like it opens by default with VS Code anyway. And, oh, there we go. It took it a moment. If you're not seeing the color coding here, then remember we went into the extensions and we looked for the view all-in-one. But if you're not seeing the color coding, it's not a big deal. So what it's doing is it's importing from another view file from hello world.view inside components. So this is typically what you would do. You would have different components inside your component subfolder, and this is where you would put in, like, if you had a component for your navigation, or you had a component for, well, I don't know, like a news API thing that you wanted the user to be able to call in at any point in the website or whatever. You can throw that stuff into the components folder, and then they'll be completely reusable from there. You can use them wherever you want to. But again, I'm just going to do everything in here. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be replacing the script here, and I'm going to be getting rid of this template, and the template is, where is the browser here? It's what's spitting out this stuff here. And then we'll also get rid of most of this CSS here. In fact, I'll go ahead and get rid of that now. So I'm going through and deleting the stuff from the style. So it still says style scoped, but there's just nothing inside of it now. And it'll probably make a big mess of this page when I go back to the browser. Oh, not bad actually. And we're also not going to import hello world. We're going to get rid of this stuff inside of here. But critically, if we're going to be doing everything in page here in this one document, then you have to get rid of this setup from the attribute from the script element, because this is really kind of like an init script, which is meant to import other scripts and so on. So I'm just going to make it into a plain old script file. And then same thing with the template. We're going to get rid of all of this stuff. So it's just, everything is just empty here, right? Empty script element, empty template, empty style. And now, yeah, there's still an HTML page being delivered here, but there's like nothing in it. In fact, I wonder if we open up, well, I'm not going to do it right now, but yeah, actually, I'm curious. So this is what the single page application looks like when there's just nothing in it, right? So we'll put some stuff back in it. So I want to make sure I'm not leaving anyone behind. Just to review, I'm working on app.view, which is inside the source folder. And I've removed everything from the script element, and I've gotten rid of that, what was it? Not init, but yeah, whatever you start with.
With a setup.
Thank you, setup. Yeah, that's it. Get rid of that, but leave scoped on the style. This is what makes it so that the styles that you put into this this SFC file will not bleed out into any other file. So if you style your H1 in here and then call this in as a component to a larger web app or a larger interface of some sort, then the styles that you create in here will not impact the styles on the larger page. They will stay contained or scoped to just this component. Very handy. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start by calling in the script, or creating a script rather. And this is what this one looks like. So if you recall, when we did, when we used the CDN version of Vue, what we did is we did like const app equals view.createApp. And this was, you know, had an object in it, and then the object is where we put in like the data and so on. But one of the benefits of working this way with a self-contained component is that you don't need to do any of that boilerplate. All you have to do is say export default, and then there's our object. So you don't have to do like the view.createApp or anything like that. It understands, because it's in the view file, that that's what's going to happen. This export is a JavaScript module kind of thing. So this means it's exporting this JavaScript to be available, you know, wherever this is being imported. So export default, and then within there, we'll do the same stuff as we did before. So like we've got the data. If you recall this, we did data function, but we shortened that. Just do data. And then return, and then returning an object. So this is what this whole thing looks like. Export default, and then within this is the data, and then within the data is the object that we're returning. So we can make the data that needs to be available to the page, put it in here. And for right now, I'm just going to say, I'm going to start by doing the galleries, and I'm calling it Galleria, and just setting an initial value of an empty object. Now we're going to have something in addition to data this time. There's a couple other things. There's like methods, like if you're going to do like a click script event handler on a button or something like that, and you want some function to run, then you would put it here in like methods. And there's also like computed values and so on, but we're just going to do mounted, which this is actually an event on its own. And what this means is that the stuff that happens in here will only happen after the page has completely loaded and the app script has been mounted. Remember that term. We had to do like the app.mount to the div id equals app. This time it's going to happen automatically. We don't actually have to write any script to mount it, but the code in here is the same. The stuff that happens inside of here will only fire once the whole page is loaded, basically. So let's do our fetch call here. So inside of here, we will do fetch. And as you recall from Wednesday, inside of the fetch, you put in the address of where you're trying to get to. So I'm going to say, just be aware that you're calling this in not from app.view, but from the index.html. That's where the address needs to be from. So even though it feels a little bit weird, you want to do /source to get back into the source subfolder. Even though the script we're coding in right now is actually already in the source folder, you still got to put it in there so that it's basically the pathway from your root directory for the project. And it is what, gallery.json. And then we have those two then methods to do. So the first then is going to return the data, and the second then is going to loop through the data, or not loop through the data, but parse the data, right? So we'll parse it as JSON. So this is what it looks like. I mean, once we get into here, like starting this fetch call, like it looks exactly the same as doing it in vanilla JavaScript. So then data, right? This should look familiar to you guys. And data.json dot then and response. And as a reminder, these are just variables that are getting passed into these anonymous callback functions. You can call these anything you want to. You could call this one Bob and this one Fred, and it would be perfectly fine. Just make sure they match. So if you call this one Bob, then this one has to say Bob as well. But almost all examples that I've ever seen in Fetch use data and then response. It's just a convention. Okay, so before what we had to do is we had to like let main equal document.query selector main, and then we had to use the template literal in order to create our own template with the HTML elements and so on. But looky here, we've got a template element down here. We shouldn't have to do any of this stuff up here. We should just be able to use view directives down here the way that we did when we did the CDN version, and that's what we're going to do. So all we have to do inside of here is go this dot galleria, that's this guy right here, equals response. So once the page loads, then this fetch function will fire, and it will grab the data, parse it, and then store the data in this galleria, which will then get returned to the page through two-way data binding. So let's go ahead and try putting something into the template here. So I'm opening up the template element down here, and then this is where we find out if we did everything right. And I'm going to do, I don't know, div id equals gallery. That's probably not even necessary, but I'll go ahead and do it. And then just like we did on Wednesday, let's create a figure for each one of these. So it's going to be figure. But like before, we had to put it into the template literal. And this time we're going to use a view directive to do a loop. I don't know if you guys recall this from Monday, but you can do v4 equals and then tell it what you're looping through within the equals sign here. So what we're going to do is we're looping through the Galleria here. So v4 equals, and then just create some variable name. I'm just going to call it L for element in Galleria. Close the figure, and then just do something in here that calls some property of L. I recall this because I wrote the JSON file. It's got a title. It's got a file name. It's got a description. And I think those are the only things we use. So let's just grab the title from each of these and see what happens. I'm going to do an H4 and do our double handlebar here for our data binding, and then just type in so like L.title. And we just want to see if we can get this much working on the page. So I'm going to save that and go over to the browser and see, and there we go. We should be getting this much. Let me go ahead and close the console there. And these are being grabbed in from that JSON file. So anyone who's actually following along with the JSON file, did you have any trouble getting this to work out here? Okay, very good. Do let me know if you did. We'll go back over any of it and check and see what's going on, but hopefully that's working for you. So now we can just get the rest of it, just like we did before. I think I put the image up before the H4 so that I could float it left if I decided to. So this is going to be image. Now image has a source and an alt attribute, but remember, if we're going to be grabbing attribute values from the loop, we use the colon in front of the attribute name instead of using the double handlebar. So like image colon src equals, and then we don't have to use the double handlebars in here. We can just say L dot file name. And actually we put it inside assets, didn't we? So, and in fact, we'll probably have to do /source all the way up from the index.html. I'm not as certain about that, but this is what I'm going to try first. So treating this as if the pathway is coming all the way from index.html, and this is what I get. And then colon alt equals, and then once again, if you use the colon, then you don't need to use the double handlebars to grab something from the loop. You just type in L.title. And then down here we had L.description. Something like that, right? So this is the H4 and the P work just the same way. This is the one that works a little bit differently because you use the colon there, and that way you're able to grab. Oh, you know what? This is not going to work. Haha. This is not going to work because part of this is just a string. L.file name is an identifier that's being called from the loop, but this whole part before it is not. So I was forgetting about that. So you actually have to do a nested quote here around this pathway part of it and then concatenate it in with L.file name. This is the part that feels weird because it's like quotes inside of a quote and it's a little bit odd. But just think about everything inside the double quotes as being JavaScript, and then look at it in isolation and suddenly it makes sense. It's just a string concatenated with an identifier. So I don't know. I may have messed something up here. Let's try it. I'm going to save, go back to the browser, and oh, looks like things are happening. So there's the image and then the title and the description, and yes, everything's happening here. So this stuff won't work if you don't have the images inside of that assets folder inside of source. But if you do, then hopefully this is what you're seeing, and if not, do let me know. So this is
Yeah,
Go ahead.
mine never updated. Still shows the byte plus view.
And you are modifying the app.view file for sure?
Yeah.
And there's no dot up here. It just says you need to save it.
No, I saved.
Oh, okay. So what I would try first off in that case is I would go to your shell here and do Control C to stop the server. And then go back to the browser and refresh so that it should say, yeah, I can't reach the site here. And then arrow and start the server up again. Wait till it gets going and then go back to the browser and refresh. And then hopefully it'll show your updates at that point. Let me know if that does not work.
Do we have access to that images JSON file?
Yeah, we used it on Wednesday when we did the vanilla JavaScript.
I got an error.
Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and pause the recording here. So I actually should have named this something else because this is not actually the lose news, right? This is just a gallery test. So I'm going back to the bash environment here. I'm going to hit Control C to stop the server. And then I'm going to cd ... which is to go up one folder. So get me back out into the workspace. And then I can just go into, there it is, workspace. I just get out to workspace and I'm just going to rename this. You know, it doesn't matter, even though I've told it what the project name is. I don't think it matters. I can go ahead and just say this is, gallery, or I guess Galleria. Oh, it's opening another program. Probably because I've got this guy open. If this doesn't work, that's okay. Yeah, it still doesn't like it. Okay. That's all right. I'll just create a lose news twos or something like that. So I want to go through the whole process again so you guys can see it again. So I'm back out here at the workspace and I'm going to do npm create and then beat at latest, like so. And now I'm going to have to give this a dumb name like, I don't know. News demo, hooray. Okay, so once again, whatever you've chosen to name your folder, make sure you choose Vue for the framework. Make sure you choose JavaScript for the variant, and that creates your scaffolding. And then you just follow these three instructions where it says done, now run these three guys. So the first one, cd into your project folder, and then npm install. I'm just loading up those node modules. And then I'm going to do npm run dev to run the server. So just like we did before. I know these folders are renamable. There's something that still has it in its memory somewhere, Oh, maybe it was VS Code. I didn't think of that. That must have been it. Localhost 5173. And we're starting back out here at this again. So I'm going to close the app.view. I grabbed my my API thingy here. So again, this is something that you can do with your own project with your own API key. And if you don't have that handy right now, then just go ahead and watch what I'm doing. This is going to be a piece of cake because we've already done it, right? I'm just basically running through all the same steps except that I'm going to call from a different data source, that's all. So let me go to workspace. Sorry, question?
Yeah, do we need to turn this in?
No. From now until the end of the
Okay.
semester, you're not turning in any demos. You're just turning in your
Okay.
project work, which is going to be the same stuff as the demos, right?
I
So
see.
we
Good.
did the demo on Wednesday, but then for the homework, I said, okay, now do what I just did, but do it for your own project. So this is going to be like that. So I'm going into news demo, the new one. I'm going to source, and I'm going to modify app.view as before. This time I'm not going to bother putting anything into the assets because I don't have any images or anything to work with. I'm going to be pulling in data remotely like we did for the second demo on Wednesday. So actually, stay out here at source, open up app.vue, and I'm going to start just the same way that I started this last one. I'm going to get rid of all the stuff that's inside the script, and I'm going to remove the setup attribute. I'm going to remove all this stuff from the template. And I'll even remove all this stuff from the style. So the script portion here, we're going to do the same thing. It's going to be export default, and then object literal there. And then we'll have two things. We'll have the data portion, which will have the return and then returns an object. And then in addition to data like before, we will have the mounted, and this is where that fetch call will go. So in this case, the return, instead of returning galleries, I'm just going to return articles. But just give it an initial value of like an empty object, like we did with the gallery, right? And then this object will be populated by the function that we have out here in mounted. So inside mounted, just like the last one, we will put do fetch. And then the fetch call will be the HTTP / newsapi.org, and then question mark. Remember, this is where the parameters start with a question mark. And then I said the one we started with last time. This is the only one I'll do tonight. I'll do country equals US, and then API key equals, and then here's where I need this guy here. And that should do it for the one parameter for the fetch function. So now I'll just set up the rest of the code block, the rest of the logic. So we have a then data, right? And then data.json .then response. Hopefully this is looking familiar at this point. And then what we did before was we did this.galleria, I think, equals, response. This is going to be this.articles equals response, like so. So this chunk here inside mounted, this is exactly the same as what we just did a few minutes ago with the gallery, except that it's got a different parameter for the fetch call. That's it. So let's try templating some of the stuff out. So I will do like div ID equals articles. And then inside of here, I will have article elements, which is a semantic HTML5 semantic element. And we'll do a V4, just like we did the figure V4 equals, and then we loop through our articles this time. So L, or let's do article. In articles. Now I seem to recall something about, something's nagging at my memory about the Wednesday demo, that this is not going to work completely. But let's go ahead and try it. Let's see what happens. And then inside of here again, I'm just going to do an H1. And let's just try some simple data binding and see if we get anything, right? And I'm going to say article. And now I can't remember what, was it name or was it title? I think it was title. Let's try it and see. And I'm not getting anything here, so let's see. Let's see if it, okay, so I'm getting a div I equals articles, but it's not looping through anything. So I think this is what I recall from Wednesday, is that the response wasn't enough by itself. Like we tried doing a loop through the response here, but it turned out that it had a name and then the array was the value of an object property. So I think that what we have to do is this dot articles equals response dot articles. If this isn't it, then I'm going to have to look at the code we did on Wednesday and see what we did then. But I'm thinking this might work now. So I'm saving this and refreshing in the browser here and seeing if we get anything. And I'm not getting a thing, so what's going on here? Let's see. Yeah, I think they are. Okay, I'm going to have to do a quick dive into Wednesday's demo and see what we did then, because that should give me an idea about what to do. When you're using Vue and it's being compiled like this instead of being executed at runtime, it's a little more difficult to spit values out to the console and do your testing there. So I'm just going to go dive back into Unit 9 and see what the heck we did. Unit 9, JS, and did we do, I guess we did this in page, didn't we? I hope. Yes, okay. Well, one thing is that I'm doing this. I'm getting my variables backwards. It's actually a response on the outer one and then data, but that doesn't matter. So I've got these backwards. So, but that shouldn't be a problem. I'm going to just normalize this here just to make sure I've got it the same way as the one on Wednesday as much as possible, but you don't need to do this. This is one of my troubleshooting things, is to equalize as much as I possibly can so that I can look for differences. That article of data.articles, yep. So what's going wrong here? Maybe it's the title thing. Let's see. No, there's a title. Huh. I may have to pause the recording if I can't figure this out. Let's solve it on my own here. It's saying something about the cross-origin response, but I don't know why that would be a problem. V2, I wonder if that's it. Let's see what do we got here. No, that still isn't it. One more thing I'll try, and then if this doesn't do it, then I'm going to pause the recording and the share, and I will get it figured out on my end, and once I get it figured out, then I will share with you again. Let's try this here. Oh, I don't know what I was doing wrong here, but I thought one of the other ones you could just put like country equals US. But anyway, I got it working just by pasting in the last thing that we did on Wednesday. So I won't necessarily make you guys sit through it, but after we stop the recording, I will go in and see what I was doing wrong. I'll have to look at the API documentation again to see what it was. So got some of this stuff in, so let's just see what else we did on Wednesday. We had an image, or URL to image with the article title, we had an article description, and we did this stuff here. So let me just go ahead and finish populating this out here. So there's that H1. We'll call it an H4 just because I haven't called in CSS yet, so that'll make these a little bit more slender, a little bit easier to read. And let's see, I think I actually started with the image. So colon source equals and colon alt equals, and this should be article dot image URL. Is that it? Nope, doesn't like it. What was it? URL to image. I don't know why this isn't working, folks. Something's going wrong with my brain now. This is obvious. That's what's happening. Because really, I mean, once we get down into here, like this stuff should be exactly the same now. So I don't know what's going on. Let me just copy and paste all this stuff. This is killing me over here. Okay, so I was doing something wrong. Okay, so part of it is that I'm still thinking that I have to use these guys in here, so I need to get rid of those. And use the colon here, so let's see if this will work here. All right, folks, I'm stopping the recording. I'll figure out what the heck I'm doing wrong.